Do we have one of the year's best comedies on streaming? What is going on, everybody? Tom Chattelbash here, and if you love movies and TV like I do, then rest assured you are in the right place, and today it is time to review Mike and Nick and Alice, starring James Marsden and Vince Vaughn. Now, Mike and Nick and Alice centers on two gangsters who are played here by Vince Vaughn and James Marsden, and the two have to try to survive one of the craziest nights of their life, and if that is not enough, there's a little ingredient of, oh yeah, time travel involved. Now, we live in the modern era where most comedies get relegated to streaming, and let's face it, a lot of these comedies that head straight to streaming aren't very good, so safe to say my expectations weren't very high going into this movie despite the talent in front of the camera. It shocks me to say that Mike and Nick and Alice is actually one of the year's best comedies, and a movie that reminds me how much I miss seeing comedies in theaters and how upset I am that studios just don't want to take a risk on comedies anymore and put them in theaters, and so they just throw them on streaming because it's so much less of a risk for them. This is a very funny comedy with terrific performances all around, some really solid direction, and it's a really entertaining movie. This is the kind of movie that would have had its heyday in, say, like the early 2000s or even 2010s in theaters. Now, this movie has a stacked cast. I mean, not only do you have James Marsden and Vince Vaughn, but you have Eiza Gonzalez, Jimmy Tatro, Keith David, Stephen Root, Ben Schwartz. I mean, the list goes on. This is a crazy good cast, and thankfully, no one's wasted here. Everyone is having the time of their lives. Everyone is delivering pitch-perfect performances. Vince Vaughn delivers a great performance here, not only playing one character, but playing two characters, or I should say, two versions of the same character, and I think James Marsden is a great scene partner for them. I think they bounce off of one another terrifically, and I think they make for a great comedic pair to watch throughout this entire movie. But by far and away, Jimmy Tatro walks away with this movie. This is a guy who I think should be a comedy megastar at this point, especially after American Vandal, which was, one of the funniest miniseries I have ever seen. But this is a guy who has perfected the lovably dumb and overly sensitive fuckboy, and I think he has done that. He's done that so well, and he's someone who I think not only deserves to be in more comedies, but he needs to be better utilized. I mean, almost every comedy I see him, and he is just sorely wasted. And as for the film itself, this is just a really fun ride. Yes, there's some time travel elements thrown into the mix, but it's not overdone, and if anything, this movie doesn't really care about the time travel element. It's more so focused on the whole one crazy night element, and that's just a classic comedy concept of, you're following a select group of characters as this night gets exponentially more wild and zany, and I love those kind of comedies, especially if they're done right, and this one is so much fun, not only because it's really funny, but because it's actually pretty action-packed and well-directed as well. This movie was shot by cinematographer Larry Fong, and if that name doesn't ring a bell for you, he actually shot a lot of Zack Snyder's movies. Now, I don't bring that up to let you know that there's tons of slow-mo in this movie or anything like that, just to show you that the action sequences actually have style and panache. This is a movie where the direction does catch your eye and the camera work does catch your eye. It's not just a typical, comedy. A lot of the action sequences in this movie are actually really fun and exciting. It's way more action-packed than I thought it was going to be. And even though Fong utilizes this artistic choice throughout the course of the movie in terms of how certain things are shot, there's like this one thing that he does that honestly drives me up a wall, that he does so much during the course of the movie that at a point it just feels like it's a little bit too self-indulgent. It's way more self-indulgent than it is, narratively compelling. But generally, I think this is a really well-shot comedy that is way better looking than it has any right to be. But more importantly, this movie is really funny. I think the script is sharp and fast-paced, and not only that, but you're giving good comedic performers great material to work with, and I can't tell you how many times I actually laughed out loud watching this movie. It's just, for me, it's rare to actually see a good comedy nowadays. And look, I'm not going to say this is a non-stop, hilarious, laugh-out-loud film, but I thoroughly enjoyed it from beginning to end. I laughed out loud a lot, and I really could have spent another hour with these characters because it was just really fun. And I will say there's some good depth to some of these characters. There's a great core trio relationship between James Marsden, Vince Vaughn, and Eiza Gonzalez's characters, and I think the way the film explores that is actually really compelling, especially as you head into the climax, where I feel like the development is really well done and definitely makes you more emotionally engaged heading into the climax of the movie, which I was definitely taken aback by. Now, is this movie perfect? No. I think there are times where the plot feels a little bit repetitive and redundant. I do think that there are some supporting characters that don't really click, that don't really hit the way they need to despite some good performances. I do actually wish that the time travel element was kind of utilized a little bit more just for comedic effect. I think there was a lot of potential there that they didn't use all of. But on the whole, Mike and Nick and Alice is a really great comedy. This is the kind of movie that if you saw in a packed theater probably would have been a blast to watch in theaters, but instead we have to stream it at home. And it just, if at the end of the day, it makes me pretty sad because this is the kind of movie I would have loved to have seen in a theater back in the day. And it just sucks that these movies, like I said, just get dumped on streaming where most people don't even know they exist or don't even watch them because they think it's just going to be another streaming comedy. And I hate that stigma that's attached to most of these movies that are put on streaming. Look, I could wax poetic about that whole thing, but stream Mike and Nick and Alice. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by this one. If you're in the mood for just a good old-fashioned comedy, give this one a shot. It's not the time travel sci-fi comedy you might think it is. It's way more of a comedy than it is a sci-fi film, and it's a pretty damn good comedy at that. So in the end, I'm gonna give Mike and Nick and Alice 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. I laughed a lot. And this is a movie I can definitely see myself rewatching and introducing to people because most people probably haven't heard of this movie, unfortunately. So give this one a shot this weekend. I think it might be one of the better comedies of the year so far. So there you go. So that's my take on the movie. Let me know what you thought of it if you check it out or stream it this weekend. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think it's just okay? Let me know down below. And until next time, everybody, I'm Tom Chattelbash, YouTube's most reliable movie critic.